In progress.
Jizzle. Here. Neal. Here. Olson.
Here.
Luce.
Here.
Zittergruen.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Is there anyone who wishes to bring something forth to the council that is not on the agenda? Hearing, seeing none. Consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the January 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting. Item B, claims. C, consider amendment of Class C beer permit and Class B wine permit for Quick Star number 629. D, consider amendment of Class C beer permit and Class B wine permit for Quick Star 1081. Consider renewal of Class E retail alcohol license for Fairway Stores Inc. number 589.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved by Luce, seconded by Olson. Any discussion? Roll call.
Luce.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Jizzle.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Consider issuance of notice to bidders for agricultural land lease at the Decorah Municipal Airport. Want to get background on that, please?
Yes, so the land currently in a lease that had expired, which had been planted in alfalfa. Historically, it's been a 3-year lease with the option. It does leave for the preference of alfalfa for aviation safety and purposes out the airport. The drafted notice would be, again, a 3-year bid and excuse me, a 3-year bid with the option for row crop or alfalfa, but then again does retain the preferential treatment that the airport commission could ultimately say, nope, based on the difference in rates, we're going to stick with alfalfa.
And the commission's take on that?
This is how they wanted to proceed, was with a 3-year split option.
Why is alfalfa the preferred
Lower to the ground.
Okay,
Lower,
okay.
They come in, they mow.
Okay.
Probably easier to rescue
Yep.
if something untoward happened.
Just less deer.
I do
Okay.
believe maybe, especially with corn, deer's an issue.
I move the issuance of notice to bidders for agricultural land lease at the Decorah Municipal Airport.
Second.
Motion made by Zittergruen, seconded by Olson. Roll call.
Zittergruen?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Jizzle?
Motion carried. Consider approval of Winneshiek Medical Center addition site plan.
Okay, Winneshiek Medical Center is wanting to construct 2 additions, one 11,850 square feet, the other 3,710. Renovate the existing facility. Staff review noted the following. 1, the submitted site plan did not include building height or architectural theme as required by code. There were subsequent additions that do show graphic renderings of what the exterior would look like. Let's see. And as well as building height was confirmed within code. Item 2, site lighting is shown on the site plan, but information on type of lighting was not included as required by code. Again, architectural drawings have later been submitted. 3, site plan indicates a connection to a city-owned storm sewer made on the property. Unclear whether any easement exists, and we may need to obtain that for the main. Item 4, stormwater management plan used incorrect peak flows has been discussed. The owner and impact should be minor. Does not show karst features within 200 feet. We have since received that map, and a schedule inspection form should be provided. Did that show up? That has not shown up yet. We're told that is still coming. Planning and zoning has recommended approval contingent upon the staff recommendation of items 1, 2, and 4. Again, 1 has shown up, 2 has shown up, 4 we're still pending the maintenance plan.
So staff's new recommendation might be that we approve it just contingent on 4.
Correct.
Thank you.
Is that the easement? My computer's not open.
It's a stormwater management.
Yeah,
Management.
The easement they'll have to get regardless, so
yeah. That was more just a statement that we'll have to do that. Lindsay Erdman, I assume, is here to represent any number of these items on the agenda as well, so might be able to answer some questions. But again, the only one staff review noted that we're still lacking is the routine maintenance and inspection form on the stormwater plan.
Go ahead and move for approval with that recommendation.
Luce with second.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Luce. Discussion? Roll call?
Chisel,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider resolution setting the public hearing for fiscal year '24 maximum property tax dollars.
Okay, so based upon the conversations had by council at the budget work sessions, staff did update those numbers reflecting the, we'll call it the total 1615 option. Let me grab the exact notice here. Okay, so this resolution would set the maximum proposed property tax levy, and I am using air quotes because this is not a true and accurate reflection of what your city tax or the city tax ask is, nor what you are going to see as a potential increase to your city tax dollars. It is showing an annual percentage change of 8.46%. However, this leaves out the debt service levy. So if you incorporate that as well, that results in a 5.24% change. So you've jokingly, air quotes, jokingly hear me refer to this as the fake budget hearing, and that's what this is. But it is a state requirement nonetheless, since the ask is above 2%.
Yeah, it's a legislative demand that we do two, one max and then the next one, which would be the,
Correct.
Hadley would put forth the resolution proposition on, for the February 6th public hearing.
Second.
motion made by Hadley, seconded by Luce for March 6th,
February 6th.
February 6th, thank you.
Olson seconded.
Olson. Seconded. Thank you.
So,
Any further discussion?
so I do want to note this, along with every other step moving forward with the process, the council can always move down from here, but cannot move up. So, there's still some potential changes that can be made. However, if the council is considering any potential increases to any of these levies, we should do that now so that we can set the hearing to reflect higher levies. And again, council can always back down.
Any other further discussion? Roll call?
Hadley,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel, Neal.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider resolution approving final plat for Bruning's third edition.
Okay. Excuse me. So items 8, 9, 8 and 9, and arguably 10, but primarily 8 and 9 are going to blend together a bit, but they are separate consideration, separate action. These both are in conjunction with a proposed Veterans Affairs clinic just west of Country Inn and Suites. As part of that, the current parcel would be divided off, and state code requires that when a parcel is split into 3 or more lots, including if done by a sequence, it must be replatted. So that's why we're seeing a final plat proposed as part of this project. Staff review of the final plat has found the following, and I do want to also note Today received a response to the letter from the engineer that also has been added to Dropbox. So item 1, no signature of licensed land surveyor found on the final plat. Signed final should be here soon. One of the items of note here is based on some easements that would be required as part of the infrastructure, not just proposed, but also existing. The water sewer run over to Car Auto. That's why a signed plat isn't here yet. Item 2, state code requires the auditor, county auditor needs to approve the name of the subdivision plat, needs to be done prior to recording. As noted in the letter response, this will be confirmed, but it is numbering its Bruning's 3rd edition because the previous one was the 2nd edition, so not believed to be an issue. Item 3, no covenants were provided, should confirm there will be no restrictions or covenants. Developer has responded, no restrictions planned. Item 4, the city council has to approve this resolution prior to recording. Item 5, lot 3 is proposed to the city right away for extension of the existing frontage road. As noted with the preliminary plat, which has also been included, we've figured out ownership. It is DOT right of way. However, we don't have there's no formalized agreement on the maintenance of that section of frontage road. The city has maintained it, and I highly doubt the DOT is going to object to the city maintaining that section of roadway, but we still need to formalize that. Let's see here. The infrastructure proposed is a dead end with no cul-de-sac. However, the commercial driveway entrance would serve as a turnaround for emergency vehicles or snowplows. No street signs, lights or signs are indicated because public infrastructure has, and that's the end of the infrastructure component. Because public infrastructure has not been completed, a performance bond should be provided to guarantee completion. P&Z recommends approval contingent upon staff items noted. In response, the letter that we received in response to these items of note, one, I don't want to call it major by any means, but city code requires a performance bond to protect the city should this final plat happen. A building could be built on the lot without the guarantee of public infrastructure going in to serve that development. Then, of course, who's on the hook to put public infrastructure in to serve that lot? The city. We certainly don't believe that going to be the case here, since the developer putting up the proposed development is also going to be ultimately responsible for the public infrastructure too. A development agreement, item 10, will be hopefully discussed, negotiated between the two parties, but still it's not going to serve as that protection for the city that the infrastructure will go in. It's no guarantee. Conversely, what I've been a part of in the past is allowing performance bonds have cost. I'd estimate this one's probably $20,000, Lindsay, maybe a little more even.
I was going to say that the developer does not disagree with the requirement. They just are working on how to provide it.
Mm-hmm. And so an alternative to a performance bond that I've been a part of is actually allowing what we call an irrevocable line of credit in the city's name. So the developer goes to said bank, said financier, gets a line of credit, it's in the city's name, and only the city can cancel that line of credit. So should they, or draw. And that's the benefit of not actually having to even pull a bond. We can just pull from a line of credit instead of calling a bond.
But the line of credit would have to be for the full million, whatever, yeah?
Their estimated cost for the infrastructure is around $500,000. So yeah, it would have to be around $500,000.
And that line of credit is their line of credit, but only the city can draw on it.
We can draw on it, but they're responsible for the payment.
Got it. So
So
if
it-
they don't put it in, we put it in and they have to pay it.
Correct. So I'm providing that option, alternative to council as a possible way that it might make it more cost-effective for the developer as well as easier, not just
Why is that,
cost-effective.
why is that easier than a performance bond?
Because performance bond, they actually have to go out and buy it like an insurance policy. And then we, as the city, if they fail to perform, we have to call the bond. We have to actually contact the bond company and say, that developer hasn't provided, pay up, we're gonna have to put in this infrastructure.
I get it. So,
Alter-
so this would save the developer essentially 20,000, so they could do it this way and just use that to build the infrastructure.
Correct.
Okay.
And ultimately making it easier on us as the city,
Sure.
should we have to actually put in the infrastructure.
More convenient way to get this done.
Travis, I might,
Do you want to come up,
yeah,
please?
I know that neither Gabe, the representative of the developer, and nor I can really tell you the answer to exactly how that one fits in with how they do things. He called me today and he was gonna try you, and he probably didn't get maybe a chance to talk to you. He is not sure that in their financial way of doing things, whether the line of credit is a doable thing for them. But he has no issue with providing the performance bond if they can work out how to do that as a company. I mean, within in their world, they're building a project. Normally, when they think performance bond, they think their contractor is going to provide them a performance bond, and that was kind of how he started out thinking of this. And he and I went through it. I think he understands the reason for it and your code reasons and things. He just has to work out as a company how they do this, and I think worth talking about. He needs an attorney to help him answer the question rather than an engineer.
Gotcha. And, you know, council's action can certainly offer both as options, because performance bond, certainly, I mean, it's the tried and true method. Again, the line of credit, I've been part of them. I've never had to utilize that line of credit. But again, another option.
So we could make this contingent on performance bond or equivalent line of credit
Yeah.
or safety net for, okay.
So the main items to highlight again, excuse me, one, contingent on assigned licensed land surveyor on the final plat. Two, the auditor confirming that the name is sufficient, no objection to that. Item
3.
Well, 3, we can confirm that no restrictions are planned. 4, the city council, in theory, if council approves this resolution, it would then be recorded with said plat, so that's this resolution here. And then,
5, the DOT plows.
and we'll have to work that one out with the DOT, but we did want to make that as an item of note. But those are going to, and then again, the performance bond or the irrevocable line of credit, those would be the 4 contingencies, right, Jeremy, as it relates to the final plat that staff would recommend. And this was recommended for, planning and zoning did recommend approval contingent upon, they listed the other staff items as well, but those would be the 4 that we would note.
You said 4, but maybe I must have lost count. I have number 1, no signature, and number 2, what's number 2?
State codes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But didn't you say
Then-
that they did? Whatever. Okay.
They haven't yet.
Okay, thank
We
you.
haven't gotten that formal, but we don't anticipate issues. So, but just still add that, and then
A workable maintenance.
what was number 3? Because number 4 was preliminary. Was it the street lighting?
Well,
Jeremy?
you need the performance bond in there.
Yeah, the performance bond and or irrevocable line of credit was going to be number 4.
Covenants was in there somewhere too.
Okay. Yeah, and part of this is we've had some subsequent stuff sent our way, so stuff has fallen off. I guess it is 3 items then of note.
I just want to make sure we're getting this right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I move approval of the final plat for Bruning's third edition contingent on item number 1 and on a satisfactory performance bond or line of credit to our staff. And see, I should have, oh, there it is. And the item 2.
Does that meet it?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Zittergrund, second by Olson. Any further discussion?
So we don't need anything for right away?
Nope, that was more a notation again.
Okay, roll call?
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel, Neal,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider approval of Veterans Affairs Outpatient Clinic Site Plan.
Okay, so this is the site plan portion. Again, same location. Staff review found the following. 1, applicant's not currently the owner. However, that's happening with item 8 and pending sale. Item 2, preliminary plat's now been approved by P&Z. Final plat approved by the commission, assuming agenda item 8's approved, no longer a note. Item 3, sidewalk shown connecting the existing bike trail and continuing along the south-southwest side of the proposed project site, stopping at the north driveway. It does allow for continuance north of the driveway for any future development. Item 4, monument sign needs to be reviewed, approved by the zoning administrator. Item 5, site plan needs to show a minimum of 4 bike parking stalls. Item 6, a right-of-way work permit needs to be submitted. Item 7, variance will be needed for the east driveway and the southwest corner of the parking lot as they're within the 15-foot setback from the right-of-way. Should just make a notation, this used to be 10 feet, but a city code change within this past year increased that to 15. So now it did trigger a variance with 15 as opposed to 10. Item 8, the subdivision plat of agenda item 9 would include a parcel with public infrastructure constructed and then turned over to the city. There are no street lights along the proposed street extension will be required prior to acceptance. Item 9, stormwater management plan has been submitted along with a partial hardship waiver request. Jeremy, are you still waiting further information on that partial hardship? Okay. And Jeremy might be able to answer some further questions on that waiver process and where that's at. Planning and zoning does recommend approval contingent upon staff items 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, and 9. However, 2, no longer an issue because we've taken care of that. 5, site plan parking, minimum of 4 bike parking stalls. Item 7, that variance needs to be granted for the 15-foot setback requirement. 8, subdivision plat of the item includes a parcel of public infrastructure, needs street lights as part of it.
So you're saying these do need to be included?
So I'm going through the list of 1 needs to be included, 3 needs to be included.
Three's good.
I don't understand
Sorry.
3. What's the problem with 3?
Oh, sorry.
The sidewalks?
Yeah, they have a sidewalk.
Yeah,
there-
3's
Yeah, we
Three's-
wanted to make sure there was an accommodation for continuing that north through
Okay,
the
and there
driveway.
is.
Just have a curb cut is all we were asking for. In
Sure.
fact, they had already included it. It was just on a sheet that we missed that one. So
Okay.
3 is fine.
So 3 was fine, okay.
So 1, 5, which is the 4 parking stalls. 7 is the variance. 8 is the public infrastructure that doesn't show street lights along the proposed street. And 9, the stormwater management plan, either a hardship waiver being granted or meeting compliance. So again, 1, 5, 7, 8, and 9.
Can we request that those streetlights in the DOT right-of-way be powered through the same circuit that powers their parking ramp, so that we're not adding streetlights to municipal infrastructure when it's not our infrastructure?
Well, it will be, or it eventually will
Yeah,
be,
the streetlights will become city infrastructure.
So the frontage road is the DOT's.
Correct. In front of the hotel.
The extension we just approved potentially talks about it being the DOT's extension, right? That's why that's,
No. It would be a city extension off the DOT right of way. It would be a city street.
okay. Then never mind.
Can they be solar?
Can it be what?
It's not a code requirement, but we can look into it.
What was the question?
mean,
What was the
We
question?
got to start somewhere. Or we
could.
could try Steve's idea and have no streetlights.
Well, I do think that there's interesting wider conversations to have, but I think that maybe this is the wrong stage in the game to have that conversation. I'd like us as a council to discuss our streetlight ordinance. Maybe we can look at alternatives in places where it doesn't make sense for us to require streetlights, but I feel like we have to follow the code that we have right now.
Well, my question is, can we build it into incentives? I mean, that was the whole idea behind incentives, is to think about ways in which to do things more sustainably. So we're about to discuss 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we build this idea of, okay, they want a partial hardship waiver for stormwater. Can there be a negotiation about trading one sustainable issue for another? Jeremy's face does not like that idea.
Yeah.
But, I mean, part of the idea behind...
No,
well,
you need
this
to
is-
watch John's face.
Okay. In the sustainability plan, right, is this notion of we want to be able to provide incentives both for development and for thinking about sustainable practices. We know as a city we're trying to cut that electrical bill. We don't want to actually be adding city light infrastructure unless we can add it in a way that is net zero, both for our carbon emissions and for our electric bill. Is this a discussion we could have with the developer as we're negotiating incentives and waivers for stormwater? I mean, it seems to me that it's all tied in together about how you're going to build a new building.
On the surface, I'm no attorney. I play one in council meetings once in a while. But yes, could. However, when it gets into the stormwater, some kind of agreement that says we will grant said hardship on the stormwater, our code says that's Jeremy's call.
Right.
So,
Okay. So untie it to that, tie it to the
I
development.
don't think you can make a component of, we will give said incentive that includes a granting of a partial hardship waiver if you do this.
Okay, so take that off the table, I get that. But what about the negotiation of the other incentives, rebates, things like that in relation to, I mean, we could discuss permeable pavement, we could discuss solar lights, maybe we could cost share. I mean, we're putting in a new development, and maybe there are ways in which we can meet our sustainability goals with the development.
I think speccing solar streetlights would be the way to do it. I mean, this just says that streetlights are required. The city would be the one providing that spec.
It's our infrastructure.
I would recommend that, not as part of this, but that we, Jeremy did say we could look into it. I think we should just spec solar streetlights as a pilot project.
Would those be included in the next?
Well,
line
and I
item?
think that does blend well into item 10.
Yeah,
Right.
Because with it being public, especially public infrastructure, item 10's request ties to public infrastructure direct. So
Mayor?
I don't see an issue with that.
I don't see an issue with tying it to number 10, just as long
Okay.
as it isn't a quid pro quo for like stormwater management or something like that.
Got it, okay. that was a bad idea.
So Mayor, I'd like to move approval of the Veterans Affairs Outpatient Clinic Site Plan contingent on items 1, 5, 7, 8, and 9.
Second.
Motion made by Zittergruen, seconded by Luce. Any further discussion?
Well, I have one more question for Jeremy.
I have one too.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I'm assuming the developer has been notified that we probably are going to be changing our stormwater ordinance to reflect, or not changing the fee that we charge for stormwater, right? Contingent on surface area. We've discussed this.
We haven't, I mean, with no formal action taken, we haven't had those discussions with any developers yet, no.
Okay, well, we haven't taken formal action, but I think it would be fair to tell the developer that this is something that's been discussed at work sessions, at sustainability, only because if they're gonna essentially not meet our minimum requirement, this might come back to haunt them in a fee. I'm not saying it will, but if we
I think that depends how you structure the fee. I mean, if the fee is independent of what they're required to do for detention, then no, they're really separate issues. If the fee is just based on the amount of impervious area,
okay,
but we haven't
so they aren't, so if it's,
hashed that out yet.
okay, so if it's based on impervious area, it doesn't matter to them anyway. Like, this won't change that.
Right, I mean, the amount of impervious area dictates how much detention they're required to provide as part of our post-construction stormwater management ordinance. The fee is, stormwater utility fee, if that is strictly based on impervious area, in my mind, they're not connected right now. That's not to say they couldn't be.
Okay, okay,
And we've talked about that for developers that have developed since our stormwater ordinance, do they get some credit for detaining, whereas others that currently don't detain maybe don't get as much of a break. But yeah, those details haven't been worked out yet.
okay, and you're in agreement that a partial waiver makes sense?
I think in this site, it does. I just want to have a couple more conversations to make sure that we've vetted all options.
Okay.
I guess my question, I got a email shortly before the meeting started tonight in reference to the stop sign that currently exists with Park Street and Highway 9 there. Do you foresee with the increased traffic that being problematic? When you have traffic, if you're looking to the east, traffic's coming through there basically 50 miles an hour plus through that intersection there. Is that going to be a problem? Maybe we don't have any control over it anyway. I know you
So,
said DOT's in charge of the frontage.
This is a good question. This came up during P&Z, and the developer has completed a traffic study. So we can answer that question. We don't have a copy of it yet, but my understanding is they did actually hire the same firm that completed the one for Quickstar.
Okay,
So we should have that information
okay.
soon. I don't have a great idea of how much traffic this development will generate, but they on their own did a traffic study.
Do we have any control over that? Is that DOT's control, that, since they control the
Control
frontage
in what
road and
sense?
the
Well,
highway?
Speed on the highway is DOT.
Okay,
I'm not proposing this, but could we control the signage entering the highway? Could we say right turn only?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was,
okay,
I would
so I'm interested to see
Okay.
the traffic
yeah,
study.
exactly. Okay, thanks, Jeremy.
Okay, so we have a motion by Zittergruen, seconded by Luce.
I-
Roll-
Luce or Olson?
I had Luce.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Zittergruen?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Chisel? Neal?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Motion carried. Discussion on potential development agreement with WSSA Decorah VA LLC.
Okay, included in the council packet, and if you're actually following along on your computers and you open the bookmark tabs, you can jump right to it using the bookmark for 010 TIF reimbursement request. Take you right to it. So this is a calculation analysis done by the developer. So again, this is, yes, it's a Veterans Affairs clinic. However, it is a private commercial development. It'd be page 681 of your council packet. But again, if you use the left bookmarks tab, it's 010 TIF reimbursement request.
I'll watch. You get it.
So the request of the developer, so again, this is a VA clinic, which if they owned the property, and operate a VA clinic, it would be property tax exempt and not generate any tax dollars. However, with this being developed privately as a commercial venture and then leased to the VA, this will generate property tax dollars. And so the project, as they're proposing, the VA would employ 80 to 100 full-time employees, including doctors, nurses, admin, support staff. They are looking at upwards of, I believe it's, excuse me, got to get to my final number here. I believe this is a $4 million, $3 to $4 million assessed valuation after talking with Jim, the county assessor. And so based on their calculations, their request to the city is to enter into a development agreement for a TIF reimbursement on the public infrastructure. They're estimating about $500,000 for the private installation of public infrastructure that once completed would become ours. And in return of said development and they paying for the street, water, sewer, stormwater improvements, lights, they would request those be reimbursed through TIF. Now, based on the model that they have provided, that can actually be done in as little as 5 years at 100% rebate based on the property taxes generated on that site. Now, from a city, quote, risk perspective, this is the lowest form of risk the city has when it comes to commercial incentives, incentivizing commercial development, because there's no upfront cash, no upfront expense borne by the city, and the only reimbursement that the city can provide and would be limited to are the property tax dollars generated from the site. So in theory, if they build and they come back with an assessed value of 1.5 or 2 million, they're getting back only the tax dollars that they're putting in on an annual basis, less everyone's debt service levy, the school's instructional support levy, and Pebble. Those are required by state law to be paid. So 100% of the tax bill gets paid by the developer, and they would get a check back for the rest of the remaining levies combined until they meet the total of their public infrastructure costs and no more.
Which say is 500,000, and they estimate that to be 5 years.
Correct.
So there is a certain amount of, it does make sense that since it's going to be our infrastructure that we could negotiate the kinds of infrastructure they put in. Because ultimately we're paying for it anyway.
Yep, the argument could be made that if there's no public participation, no rebate back, it would be purely tax dollars in. But this was also discussed when the developer initially came. There were discussions on a private driveway. They would basically just pick up a driveway off the end of the frontage road, which would then actually prohibit potential future development to the west. So there is incentive here to make sure that is a public street that comes into that spot.
What's the rough taxes that we're talking about per year from this, if it's 1.5 million?
Roughly 130,000. That's in total tax dollars, not just to the city. That's total tax bill.
Travis, what is to stop them after they've kind of collected these TIF payments from, selling the property to the VA and taking it off of the tax rolls? I just want to ensure that we're, if we're providing these kinds of incentives for development, I just want to ensure that we're going to reap the benefits for the long term in terms of, collecting money from the property.
Fair enough. I don't know that there wouldn't be a provision in there. There would be no protections.
Would that be an argument then in favor of lengthening the TIF repayment window instead of aggressively doing it in 5 years, maybe making it 10 to ensure we at least, realize some benefit.
Could. Could make the argument that structure it, over 10 years, not to exceed 60% of the, with the intent of being able to reimburse them for their cost of public infrastructure, but stretching it out to ensure they maintain a private ownership for 10 years. Could.
Hi, Travis. Can I speak on this? This is Gabe from west of Decorah, VA, the developer.
Okay. That'd be a question for Lorraine, the mayor.
Yes, you may speak.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I've been silent. I'm in the car right now, so I won't take up too much of your time. It's kind of noisy. Let me know if you can. Everybody hear me clearly?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Perfect. I guess from a high level, I've never in our 30 years ever seen a public entity purchase a private leaseback situation, hence why they go out for a leaseback in a private leaseback scenario. The situation is highly unlikely. I see, and we have no problem making it a contingent on 10-year private development, as long as it doesn't restrict us from selling to another private entity if that situation arises. So that's all I have on that particular item.
So like, Gabe, were you talking about a potential clawback, or you're just good with what was just discussed as long as it's allow for potential private-to-private sale?
Yeah, or can we, so do you call it a clawback or a buyback? Yes, I thought you did.
Yeah, we can exclude public ownership if that helps move this along. We have absolutely no intent of selling this back to the federal government. So if you want to restrict that, I don't know how that's written, if that's part of the development agreement, but that's fine with us in theory.
I appreciate the clarification to my original question. If my staff assure me that it wouldn't be ordinary or regular, I just want to make sure that we're not signing up for a position that might potentially weaken the city. So if his statement that this is something that just doesn't happen is accurate, then I'm perfectly fine as is. I just, I don't want to complicate this. I just want to make sure we're not opening ourselves up to a loss on this.
I do like the clause, personally. You brought it up. I like it, but that's only because I'm sort of like, we're at an age when anything is possible, so.
You go first, John.
I guess
This
my-
changes my answer.
I don't doubt what Gabe's saying, but I guess my thought is, okay, so the federal government doesn't buy it back. They decide to close down a VA clinic. Then the developer has this clinic. Who's a likely buyer? A nonprofit clinic? I guess I just point that out that while, like I said, I don't disagree with Gabe, that doesn't necessarily get you where I think you want to go to ensure that this remains on the tax rolls for a certain period of time.
Do you think that the developer's proposal would, address those concerns adequately?
Well, what I heard him addressing was he doesn't think the federal government would ever buy it. That doesn't address your concerns that it could fall off the tax rolls because it goes to a nonprofit that's tax exempt.
I meant his willingness to have a clause in here saying that it would stay in private ownership for 10 years.
I want to stay in my lane because I'd go to John Danos on the development agreement, right?
Right.
I've never done it. I don't know if you could do a restrictive covenant for so many years. I would feel uncomfortable making it indefinite for many reasons, but
Yeah.
for a certain period of time, maybe.
Well, and that's where I was going to get at. We definitely need to put some kind of end date on this, because I do think that even if there are no payments made through the development agreement, but it's still outstanding years 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever those might be, that the agreement is still in place for that potential clawback, we're still going to have to report it as an ongoing agreement as part of the state's reporting process. Not insurmountable by any means, but just want to note that we would have to report this on an annual basis, that we have said development agreement. I'm
And
a
we're
pretty
at-
conservative person. I'll go as far as to say, as Gabe stated, the chances of the federal government purchasing, I will agree with that, highly, highly unlikely. The federal government is notorious for not owning buildings. I mean, post offices to, Army Reserve Centers, you name it. They don't typically own buildings. They like to lease them. As to if it were to come up for sale, let's say the VA says, you know what, we're pulling out of here. Again, that's, I don't have a crystal ball. If they do that, as John pointed out, it could go to a potential nonprofit. However, if it remains a commercial property, that's our end goal. We want to make sure it remains a commercial property. It could still be leased to another nonprofit.
So why can't we do that, an agreement that it has to be 10-year in commercial, and we do a 5-year TIF, and we do a 5-year taxes, but that the entire span has to be 10 years, of which it remains in nonprofit status.
Yeah. I believe that,
In profit status.
like John said, I would have to rely on Danos and his confirmation, but I believe that is doable.
I just looked, Gunderson pays real estate taxes. I mean,
Because they're a private, for-profit system.
Yeah.
okay.
So as long as it's not a county, a nonprofit, and actually, so does Mayo as a system, they're considered a nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
So Mayo would be the one that if they were to lease this space, it would go off the rolls.
So I guess I
Or
would
not lease, buy, excuse me.
either the clawback, is that when they would have to reimburse the city if they sold it?
Correct.
Yeah, either that out or the 10-year, I would like to see within the agreement.
So what's the suggestion?
So I would,
Can I
Yes?
something, please?
Yes.
Just so everybody knows, this is at minimum a 10-year firm, non-cancelable lease from the Department of Veteran Affairs. So they cannot cancel. And I don't mind providing I assume we'll have to do some redacting just for public sharing, but the VA is not moving out of here. Hence why we're, doing such a significant development, because we have a 10-year guaranteed lease. So I get the concern of, there being a potential sale, and we can limit it to however you folks want. But I hope to ease your concerns that the VA would, cannot cancel the lease because it's a firm term. So I hope that also puts some of your worries to ease.
That does provide
helps.
some clarity,
Yeah,
yes.
I would say if we can have a redacted copy of that 10-year lease, then we wouldn't have to put anything in.
Yeah. Yep, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry for opening a can of worms. I just was kind of curious how that all worked. I should also preface that by saying I'm really excited about this development. My father has to drive to Iowa City for a lot of routine care as part of the VA, and I'm very excited for Northeast Iowa veterans that they're going to be able to have such a more close to home place to come and get the care they need, and that they deserve it. We owe them. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the new jobs. I'm grateful to everyone who was part of making this project happen.
Would you like to make a motion towards this?
There's no motion needed. I think he just wants information on what we want to look.
Okay.
Correct. So
That
I'm-
sounds good.
what I'm looking for, because we're treating this just like Bluffside cabins or Bluffside Gardens, where and actually we'll use the same urban renewal area and plan and amend that urban renewal plan amendment to incorporate this project and the parcels that have now been created as part of the final plat process in order to create a development agreement that allows for said reimbursement. So the whole premise tonight was to have the conversation on what council's appetite was for a potential development agreement, so that I can then, as staff, go work with Dorsey Whitney on amending Bluffside urban renewal area. So
Okay.
from what I gather from the conversation here, council is supportive of a public infrastructure-based reimbursement for the development.
Yes.
Yes.
And one last thing, because I was glad Emily brought it up on the last item, but I wanted to hold my discussion to this item when I think it's more pertinent, which is the question of the street lighting. As I mentioned in our second budget workshop, it seems like this place of all places, it just seems very strange to me that we as a city, as part of our code, require street lighting on this piece of road, given that it's a clinic that presumably is not going to have many evening hours. And those street lights are, going to be something of a visual distraction to a recently approved, vacation rental business. It's going to be more lights in that area. It's going to be more lights, right next to that bridge, which is such a beautiful gateway into our community. It may just be that, we're too late on this one, but I would like to see if the rest of council would entertain a conversation at some point in the future, giving our police chief and streets engineer more flexibility in applying our streetlight requirement. They might look at a potential development and say, actually, this road doesn't require as much lighting as our code calls for. I'm wondering what the council thinks about having that conversation in the future.
Why not on this site?
Can we change it for this site?
To me, the difference between the site plan and the development agreement is, for a site plan, the developer just has to meet certain code requirements, and then they basically have a right to build it. Development agreement, there isn't so much of a right, just as long as you're not discriminating against somebody for some protected reason. So I feel a little bit more comfortable that you have a little bit more flexibility to negotiate the incentives to meet some goal of the city.
Well, and
Well-
and streetlight wattage operation and whatnot is operations. It's not part of any of these agreements or whatnot. So as long as if we were to spec something, whether it's solar or not, that's either tunable or timeable,
Or completely
or dark sky
dark
rated.
sky? I mean, it is an opportunity to try that.
I think we have some. I think we as a city have some operational flexibility. So I don't think we have to discuss it now.
That does sound like something that you do want to discuss in the future, and maybe you can make note of
And
that.
that's probably going to be more a code change, but to Stephen's question, I think it's a can. And as part of the rebate, not necessarily, we could do something to the extent of, because you're talking about just not having them, not having streetlights as a possibility.
Right, and I'm not an expert on this at all. I just, I wonder about, it's a very brightly lit highway right there. There's not going to be a lot of evening walkers on this particular street, so I just wonder why we're requiring more lights in that area.
Right, and so that direct answer of, can we say you don't need streetlights there? No, I don't know that we can.
Right.
As part of the development agreement, can we say that we want those streetlights to be dark sky compliant, or have the ability to be on a timer, whatever? Yes. Those should be eligible for negotiation within a development agreement. But whether you need them or don't, that's no, we can't go
Right,
there.
that would be a future conversation affecting future
Okay.
projects.
So I guess your question, I am open to a future conversation about that, but I do think in this particular area, especially what you said, I think we have an opportunity to try some things, right, that we might want to consider. And I think one of those things would be certainly dark sky, some of it would be solar, and to at least do the work to figure out what that cost difference would be.
Alliant Energy provided me with their vendor's catalog for solar tunable dark sky lights this week. So it's very fortuitous, which I've shared with the city engineer. So we can have that discussion with him intelligently with utilities that have been proven in other communities.
That does sound like a discussion for future. Okay. Consider resolution regarding dissolution of the Municipal Electric Utility Task Force.
Okay, so the MEU task force was commissioned by the council under the sustainability plan to explore the advantages, disadvantages of an MEU, meet with various stakeholders, hold educational sessions, commission a feasibility study on establishing an MEU, and provide recommendation to council on if and when to hold a second referendum. The MEU task force has recommended a referendum be placed on the ballot at a time when the council deems appropriate, and then do a feasibility study. So with their work being completed, it's recommended an action of the council be taken to dissolve the task force to kind of tie up that loose end.
I make a motion to dissolve the MEU task force based on the recommendations, that a referendum be held at an appropriate time, and then council do a feasibility study.
Second.
Motion made by Neal, seconded by Luce. Any further discussion?
I just want to take public time to again thank all of the members of the MEU task force for their incredible work over the last 2 years. It was a very difficult job, sometimes a very thankless job. So if I can make up for any of that by my heartfelt thank you, I would love to do that. So thank you to all the commission members and their hard work on this issue.
And for developing a resource that's available to all the citizens of this community to be able to learn about this whole process. Please utilize it.
And we will be holding a work session on the 31st. So the council will be taking up the issue of the MEU, moving forward with the MEU discussions in council on the 30th. I highly recommend any public wishing to attend, look at those resources, read the task force, which is posted on the website, along with watching the videos that were provided.
Sorry.
Okay.
Today is Tuesday, so that date's the 30th. It's a Monday.
Right.
Yeah, the 30th.
Yeah.
Did we say the 30th?
I said 31st because I
Oh,
looked at my
yeah.
calendar and
I think
2
I-
weeks
yeah.
from today.
So
Okay.
the 30th.
And correct me if I'm
Okay.
wrong, Steve, but I believe they said at their last meeting that they'd be available for advisory purposes if we need them for.
I think I told them to be available for advisory.
I think they are
Right,
planning
right.
to be there
I
for
think
that
they
meeting.
did. I think they made.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. Roll call?
Chisel. Sorry. Nope.
Hey.
Sorry, I flipped my page over prematurely. Neal.
Aye.
Luce.
All right.
Johnson.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider ordinance amending 15.12060 Board of Appeals to staggering appointment of members, second reading.
Lucid, move the second reading.
Second. Have we had any comments? Public?
Have not received any public comments.
Moved by Luce, seconded by Chisel. Roll call?
Luce.
Aye.
Chisel. Neal.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Move to waive the third and adopt.
Second.
Moved by Luce, seconded by Chisel, to waive the third and adopt. Roll call?
Luce.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried. The vacancies are on the following boards and commissions: Telecommunications Board, 1; Civil Service Commission, 1; Human Rights Commission, 2; Board of Appeals, 5; Sustainability Commission, 1. As of today, I don't believe we've had any applications. Now, it may be different when Carrie gets back. She may have had some, but any
Right.
other
I'm
comments?
not aware of any that have come in yet.
Okay. All right. City manager, department heads, and council reports?
Real quickly, I'll note last week's was the start of the legislative session. Said no one ever. But
Okay, keep
so
going.
I'll turn my mic off.
I do sit on the Iowa League of Cities Legislative Policy Committee, and so I do participate in weekly meetings and updates with their lobbyists as well as others on the committee. And we'll see what this year brings. We're not overly optimistic. The House File 1 that already came out, I'm sure I can already feel the eyes burning me. House File 1 has a number of components of it that are interesting, one of which being bond issuance. So if cities, counties, or excuse me, I don't know that counties are 100% involved in this, but school districts. So if you are issuing bonds and you have to have a referendum, House File 1, among a number of things, but would require a direct mail notification of every property and every contractual interested party in your taxing district. Direct mailing notification of a bond referendum would be required. And so that's an interesting item of note. We do think property tax reform, I'm going to use air quotes on that one too, as well as local option sales tax, those are most likely going to rear their head again.
I really appreciate you being on that committee. Thank you.
I'd make a suggestion. You sent us the League of Cities report.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever create a layman's report?
The best they get would be the league's legislative policy update comes out weekly. And if you're not already signed up for it, I do encourage you sign up for that. They call it the legislative link.
Would you send that link out, please?
Yeah, I'll send that out.
But I would encourage the league to be far more involved in outreach to people about these issues. Coming from the League of Cities, it would be really beneficial. I mean, it's one thing to talk to elected officials, but it is definitely how people vote. And I don't think enough people are aware of these issues. And if you start, I can't just forward the League of City things to people. I mean, even I have to take a long time to go through it, and I'm dealing with these things on a regular basis. So I would encourage, if they really want to make change in the state, then they really have to get people informed. And that should be something the League of Cities does.
Right.
I know the discussion of late for the members of the league were encouraging that as well
Yeah, and that was one of the, we'll call it criticisms of the league.
last year.
In the past, it's been, here's, House file, Senate file, House study bill, whatever it might be. Talk to your legislator about it. About what? You talk about layman's terms. Unless you dive into some of these bills, it's difficult to sometimes grasp what the implications are. And so what we have said is the league needs to do better on providing templates, not the right word, but educate cities on how to communicate with their legislators on what the direct impacts are for them as a community. For example, if property tax reform is going to result in a decrease in everyone's commercial property tax rate, yet again, create an Excel calculator or something so that you can send out to the members and say, plug in what your commercial valuation is. Here's how you get it off the Department of Management's website. Plug this number in this cell, and everything else will auto-populate for you for your talking points. And that's, I do hope to see that done better this year.
And that's exactly why I really appreciate you being on that committee. Okay, anything else?
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Anything from the department head table? Speaking of departments, I just want to extend our sympathy to John Panko in the passing of his father. So, okay. Randy.
I don't have have anything other than our second meeting in February, the 20th, our city office is open, President's Day?
Yes, I believe they're open.
We are, okay, all right. I know that's a holiday for some, so, okay, other than that, I have nothing.
Emily?
Sustainability Commission meets next Wednesday, 5:45?
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Duh, it's the 18th, yeah, tomorrow. Meets
And it's actually at the Decorah Public Library, not
Decorah
here.
Public Library.
Oh.
Not
Nope,
here.
they just changed that this afternoon. We had a conflict that the conflict canceled.
Okay,
So reached out to Jim Martin Schramm. He did change it back to here. So that agenda did get posted, should have received notification of it.
okay.
They did change
5:45.
it back to here, 5:45.
5:45 City Hall.
Over
I
the Zoom link.
I didn't, yeah, but it doesn't mean I haven't given
Okay.
an email yet. And then I had a question about the Airport Commission. I didn't see their notes, but they discussed rates, and I was curious what that became of that discussion.
Yes, so that will be an actionable item at their February meeting.
Okay.
They did discuss them as it related to generalities.
What was their?
But the agenda had at the last budget work session, that was a Tuesday, Airport Commission meeting was the following day, so I couldn't change the agenda in time to have an actionable item.
Okay.
Or really any item for any decent discussion on it.
Okay, so that'll be in February.
They just agreed to have it as an agenda item for February 1,
In
or
re-
February meeting.
In relation to the airport, Bill mentioned that they approached the Board of Supervisors for additional funding for their project. Both Travis and I were there yesterday for that.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Kirsten?
Nothing tonight.
Steve?
I have nothing to report other than I wanted to share that my father-in-law passed away this afternoon at 95 years old. Incredible individual, and he'll be sorely missed.
Our sympathies with you.
Sorry,
Ross?
I had a chance to meet with a couple members of the park board to discuss ongoing collaboration on grants for Ice Cave and for Ice Cave Road, air quotes, road, and Carlson Park. So we're just making sure we're in tandem on approaches that we can continue working with the street
Okay.
committee.
Kurt? anything?
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay. Motion to close? Thank you very much.